Okay, good afternoon, ME10 class. We are going to cover how to 3D print your tensile specimens so that you can go ahead and test them. So we are going to be using the 3D printers in the Wilbur Powerhouse. They are all linked by an online service called 3DprinterOS. So you're going to want to open up a web browser. We recommend Google Chrome. And in the search bar, you're going to type in 3D printer. It would help if I typed it correctly. 3DprinterOS.com. And that will take you to the 3D Printer OS website. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see a little green tab that says Sign In. Go ahead and click on that, and that will bring up a pop-up menu. Now, it is really critical that you don't sign in on this first tab. Please don't do that. You won't have permissions to print if you do that. You want to move over here to the SSO tab, and you'll want to click, obviously, Lehigh University. So click on Lehigh. That will bring you to the Lehigh sign-in page, pop in your credentials, and then that will take you to the 3D Printer OS site that looks like this. I've already done that, so my credentials are saved, and you don't have to sit here and watch me put in my password. When you get to 3D Printer OS, it will pop up a window that looks something like this. You will have a bunch of ducks here if you're opening it for the first time. They're just there so you can kind of play around with the system. I have some other files that I've been doing some printing with. We are going to first step upload some files. So we're going to click on the add files over here on the right hand side. And instead of just choosing a single file, because we have 3 files that we want to kind of group all together, we're going to choose project. I'm going to type in ME10 tensile specimens. And I'm going to give it a different color so it sort of pops out. We'll give it yellow. And click on choose file. You're going to navigate to wherever you have those STLs saved. I just dropped them on my desktop for easy access. So I have my 3 STL files with each of the labels on them. Select all 3 at the same time. Click open. You'll see that they say successfully uploaded once they're fully uploaded. And then you can click save and go to my projects. If I scroll back up here, you'll notice that we were originally in that My Files tab. That looks familiar. Now we're working in that My Projects tab. And again, I chose yellow as the header bar, so this sort of stands out for me. And you'll see that those 3 files are here next to each other. You guys, I'm assuming, are all using SolidWorks, so you should have pretty robust files. You shouldn't have to worry about repairing. So this first step, so typically you work from the left to the right, so you would do repair, layout, and then slice. For today's tutorial, we're going to do something kind of completely different. We don't need to repair anything. We're going to be pretty confident that these guys are all good files. We are going to use the layout tab. So I'm going to choose one of these files. I'm going to choose the longitudinal one to start. So I click layout. And it's going to open up that file and put it in a printer volume. First thing I want to do, come up here to printer. I'm just going to hover over that and double check that Ultimaker 2 is selected. All of these prints need to be done on our Ultimaker 2s. Those are our printers of choice for this project. They're the only ones that we can kind of manipulate the toolpath the way that we want to. So make sure that Ultimaker 2 is selected. When you do that, you'll see that you have this bounding box, which shows you kind of the total volume of the printer. You'll see this build tray area that has this grid pattern on it. And then there is this light blue line inside of that, and that indicates kind of the maximum printable area. So this is telling me the object is out of the printer box. Obviously, we can see that that's the case. So what we've done is you'll notice here as I move this, you'll see that you have this red bar along this edge and this green bar that sort of shows how big my object is. The red bar is the front of the printer. And the way that we've designed the printer to work for this particular project is it's going to go back and forth from front to back. So it's just going to print in a single or a unidirectional unidirectional direction. It's going to print one way. So it's just moving back and forth. Typically, that's not how the printers work. They usually overlap the tool paths 45 degrees to one another to give you increased strength. Because we actually want to look at the difference in strength of how the printer direction affects the material properties, we obviously had to change how it's printing. So it's moving front to back. So this is the longitudinal specimen, which means we actually want those print path to go the long direction of, or along the long axis. So the first thing I need to do is, with this selected, I'm going to come up here to the top and click rotate. And I want to rotate around this axis, which is the green axis, which if we come over here, you can see the green triaxial here is the Y direction. And I want to rotate that 90 degrees. So that rotates it. And again, we're going front to back. So you'll see now that it's going to move in that direction. I click back to the move command. And now I can sort of orient this where I want. We're going to fit all 3 specimens on the print tray, which means we got to get these things kind of squeaked up. You can give yourself about a ½ inch from either edge. They don't have to be right up against the blue line, but we do need a lot of volume, especially because we have that one that goes at 45 degrees. So this one's set. The last thing you want to do after you've moved it and rotated it, you want to click on bed. This is critical. This moves the lowest surface of this down to the surface of the build tray. If you're not all the way down, you could be printing in midair, and that won't give you a very good specimen. So make sure that you click on bed. And then I'm going to choose from the top menu up here, Add File. So I click Add File. It defaults to this idea of single files from the My Files tab. We're going to click on that, and then it will show you a list of projects. I'm going to go down to ME10 tensile specimen. I've already brought in the longitudinal one. We'll bring in the transverse one next, so the 3D printing _T. So I'm going to choose that one and click Apply. And give it a second, and it will bring in that next file. This one is oriented correctly. Again, it's printing back and forth, so the transverse direction is across the short axis. And I'm just going to kind of position this toward the front of the build volume. And that's all we have to do for that one. Click on bed. And we're going to do that yet one more time. So I click Add File. This time I'm going to go to SL, which is the slant, or 45 degrees. So I click on that one, click Apply. And this one I'm going to move kind of into the tray, click on the rotate command. Again, I'm still wanting to rotate around that green axis, which is the Y direction. So here I'm actually going to type 45 and hit enter, and that's going to rotate that one at 45 degrees. So that's set. I'm going to go ahead and click on bed. I just want to make sure that my specimens aren't touching each other anywhere. If they are, click on the specimen, click move, and you can kind of move it around on the build tray. Again, there's no real concern here. So all 3 of them fit without a problem. Again, just double check by clicking on bed. And once you're happy with that, we're going to go ahead and click the Save button. It brings us back to the My Projects tab. We're still in the ME10 tensile specimens project. These are the 3 original STL files we brought in, and you'll notice now that there is a new STL file, and it has this little number appended to the end of the file. I'm going to click Edit and go ahead and give myself a new name for this. So I'm going to just type all _3, so I know that it's all 3 specimens. In the description, you could certainly add a description. All 3 laid out correctly. Great. And then click OK. So you'll see now that that's now changed the name of that, so you can very quickly understand what these are. At this stage, we are ready to go ahead and slice. Ordinarily, if you were 3D printing, you would just click the slice button here. But again, because we have to print with this very particular print orientation, we have to use a different slicer. So I'm going to click the little gray button to the right here. It brings up a bunch of apps that are available within 3DprinterOS, and we're going to choose the Slicer 3 app. That will open up a new window here. It should default to ME10 as the slicing profile up here. Make sure the printer type is Ultimaker 2+. Slicing profile ME10. If you click on that, you'll see that we did some earlier tests, so there is a test there, but you'll want to choose that ME10 profile. Don't mess with any of this. This is the stuff we did when we created that profile. You can see there's 100% infill density. There's no walls, so we're not putting any like outside boundary to this. It's just literally going back and forth. We've given it a 0.2 layer height. All of this stuff is just general printing settings. So please don't mess with any of this. You don't need to do any support, so you can skip all of this. Literally, all you have to do is click ME10 and then click Slice and Toolpath Preview. If you give it a second, it will pop up this preview screen. You can use your scroll wheel to kind of zoom in here. You can use your center scroll wheel button to, if you hold it down, you can kind of pan left and right. And if you use your right mouse button, you can kind of rotate in axis, so you can kind of look down on top of this. We're in layer view. Over here on the right, you'll see that this object is 12 layers tall, and we can start to step through those layers. And if we zoom in on each of these samples, so this is, if I go back to our top layer, this is our SL, or slant, and you can see that we are at 45 degrees to that model, right? And as we step down through these layers, each layer, it actually doesn't change, each layer is going at that same slant. If you did this on an ordinary print, you'd see these start to go in different directions. You'd also see a toolpath that went on the outside edge of this. Again, we're just doing all infill. So you just want to quickly double check by zooming out, panning, kind of zooming back in. This is the transverse. This is the T option. So again, if I scroll down through this, you'll see all of the toolpaths are going back and forth across the short axis. So yes, that seems fine. Go back up to my top layer so I can read what I'm doing here, and zoom in on this last one. This is the longitudinal, or L. And again, you can see now if I look at these toolpaths, they go along the long direction. So these all look perfect. That's great, super terrific. We're ready to go ahead and print. So at this point, go ahead and click the close button. You'll note, again, back in this project, we now have a new .g code file. This is what the printer uses to print. And you can see it's going to be 1 hour and 16 minutes. It's going to be $2.30 to print. Your professor has agreed to pay for that out of your class budget. So we're going to go ahead and click the print button. And this part is also really critical. So what you want to make sure of here is the way we set this up was using a 0.4 millimeter nozzle printer. Half of our Ultimakers are set up with 0.8 millimeter nozzles for doing like larger prints faster. We set this up with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. So if you look at the printers all have funny robot names. Crotty Robot, it's using PLA, it's 0.8 millimeter nozzle. So this would not be a printer that we would want to use. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to find a printer that has a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. So Dot Matrix, she's got a 0.4, Maria 0.4, Baymax 0.4. You'll see all of these are idle, which means they're ready to accept a print. If there's something that's printing, look, if Sunny here is printing, it's telling you that there's 25 minutes left in that print before another one could be printed. So obviously, the sooner you want to print, choose a printer that's not printing. It could be possible that all of these are printing because all of your classmates are printing their samples, so you might just have to put it in the queue. So the little color of the dot here is the color of the filament type. We try to keep that updated as best we can. Really, it doesn't matter. Most of these are dialed in pretty well. And so, and you can see Tom Servo, it doesn't say printing, it says idle, but it does have a time here. That means that there's something queued, but that print has not yet been started. So there's a print of 1 hour and 40 minutes ready to go. The staff will release that shortly, and then that will change to printing. And then there'll be some time yet. So obviously, Tom Servo is going to be used here in a minute. So I'm going to go back up. I'm going to find a printer like Helper is idle. It doesn't have anything in the queue. I'm going to go ahead. It is a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. It's white filament. That sounds super terrific. And you're not going to have this print button. I have this because I have direct printing privileges. You are just going to have a Q button. So go ahead and click Q there, and it will pop up this little menu. If you're printing for yourself, you can charge it to your burster count. In this case, you're printing to a class. That's how we're charging it. So choose to a class. Input your LIN. I'm not going to show you my LIN, so I'm just going to use a generic number there. Enter the class name. Please type in ME10 here. And then lastly, we just have to indicate that, yes, I accept that if for some reason the instructor refuses to pay for my print, that I am responsible. So choose yes, and then click continue. A little pop-up menu. It will say your request has been submitted, and pending approval, just click OK. I have a student staff that work pretty much from 8 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, so they send prints relatively quickly to the printers. So obviously $2.30, takes an hour and 16 minutes to print. You'll probably have it back in 2 hours if there isn't a queue for the printer. You can pick up your print in the little drawers directly across from where the 3D printers are in the Wilbur Powerhouse. The drawers are labeled A through Z. Your prints will be in the drawer that starts with the first initial of your Lehigh login. So I am BCS3. I would find my prints in the B drawer when they're done. You will get an email that says your print has started. You'll get an email that says your print has completed. If for some reason you can't find your prints in the drawer, just talk to the staff that's hanging out. They wear red aprons in the building, and they hang out at the printers or in the shop space. They can pull up the queue and kind of figure out what's going on with your print. But I don't anticipate having any issues. So that's it. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward and you don't have any issues. Good luck, and let me know if you have any problems. You can reach out to me. My Lehigh email address is bcs3. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great project.